Around. I don't know. Yeah, I guess. Okay, everybody hear me okay? All right, here we go. I'm gonna start the same place John did in the book of Shmot. And as it opens, now keep in mind, Yaakov and Joseph had been dead, gathered to their fathers, a couple hundred years, give or take a little bit either way, by the time this book opens. And it gives the names of the individual members of each household aren't listed. Okay? Let me get back out of the way. What we have listed is there's 70 names, beings, nephesh, 70 souls that came into Mitzrayim with Yaakov, each one with his household. But out of those 70, only 13 people are listed. Okay? And there they are, from Yaakov all the way down through Joseph, who was already in Mitzrayim. Is there a message there? Do you see it? I mean, there was a message there to me, but sometimes I see things and hear things, and people look at me like I'm a little strange, but I saw a message there. And I saw the book of Revelation. I saw the New Jerusalem come down. And there's only 12 gates on that. And those 12 gates have the names of these 12 tribes written on them. The foundations have the names of the 12 Talmudim of the Messiah on the foundations of those gates. My individual name may not be listed on this list here. But it tells me that if you're going to belong to the children of Israel, if you're going to become a Hebrew, in all deference to John, who is a Jew, not all of us are Jews, right? We'd all be alike. If we were all Jews, we'd all be like John. Going to let that sink in a minute. But we all are Hebrews. Whether you're physically descended from these 12 tribes, whether you grafted in, became a part of them, you are a Hebrew, an Ivri. You have crossed over, hopefully, to never go back. What have you crossed over? What is a Hebrew? What are you? What's a Hebrew? You've crossed over from what to what?
Somebody who is called by the name of Yahweh.
You've crossed over from the ways of the world to the way of Jehovah. Remember, the world has ways of the world. Jehovah has one way, his way. It's about being a Hebrew. It's about being grafted in. These 70 souls, and not all of them are named, are the people that Jehovah Elohim was going to use to build a great nation. Remember what he promised to Yaakov? He said to Yaakov, it's okay for you to go down and to cross over into Mitzrayim. It's okay for you to do that, because I'm going to build you into a great nation there. Okay? Follow me so far? Now, would it be safe to say that these 70 individuals, okay, because the ones that are listed here had all passed away, been gathered to their fathers by the time we get into the book of Shmot. It tells us all the Joseph had died and all the brothers, all of that generation had died by the time we really get into the book of Shmot. Is it safe to say that the descendants of these 70 beings were perfect, Torah-observing, God-fearing individuals, or did they have some faults and some issues, and did they argue among themselves? We got a story about that, right? The two of them are fighting among themselves. Gee, what does that sound like? We haven't progressed very far over the last 4,000 years, have we? Anyway, we get into this part of it, okay? And like I said, it says that and Joseph died and all his brothers, all that generation. But the children of Israel were fruitful and increased very much. They multiplied and became very strong, and the land was filled with them. Now, remember that part of that verse, and the land was filled with them. We're going to take a look at that again in just a few minutes here. Now, back in Bereshit chapter 15, Elohim promised Abraham, he said, know for certain. Now, when the Father says something, you really don't have to add that know for certain on there, right? Because when the Father speaks something, that's it. It's truth. It's not going to change. Now, there are a lot of times he speaks and he says, if you would do this, then I'm going to do that. Which tells us what? The Father has spoken, but he's given us some choices on what's going to happen. The Father has sat down. Now, when he gives his word, when he says, you shall not do this, there's no if and then in there. You shall not steal. You shall not commit adultery. You shall honor the Sabbath day. The things that he gives to us that says you shall or shall not do, they're not open to discussion or change. But there's a lot of times in Scriptures he tells us, okay, Israel, if you would do this, then I'm going to do that. Putting it, what? Where's the ball then? It's in our court. Our choice. And it also goes saying, if you don't do it, I'm going to do this. And he's very explicit and very honest all the way through Scripture. Is there anywhere in Scripture that you have to wonder what the penalty of sin is? Is there anywhere in Scripture you have to wonder if he will bless you if you walk in obedience to his word? From cover to cover. It's in there, right? Is there anywhere written in this book that there's any question what sin is? Then where did the question of what sin is come from? If it didn't come from this book, where did it come from? Man's interpretations of Scripture. Oh, did he really say? I wonder where man learned that from. Did he really say, if you eat of this fruit? Did he really say you had to keep the Sabbath? Or can you worship on any day you please? Did he really say? You know what the answer is? Yes, he did. Now get out of my face. Talking to Hasatan. Because it tells me resist Hasatan and he has to flee. So when he comes popping along here saying, did he really say? Yeah, he did. Now leave. You don't get into a discussion about theology with Hasatan. Did the Messiah get into a discussion about theology with him? No, he said, nope, it's written. Leave. He came back 3 times. Nope, it's written. Leave. It's written. That's not even in my notes. I don't even know where we're going today. We're going to talk about being a Hebrew. Hopefully we're going to learn to be a Hebrew. And hopefully we're going to learn what it means to live and be a Hebrew. Because it's more than just a title. It's more than just something that you can go around telling people so you may get out somewhere and, be different and special. We're different enough. We don't have to make ourselves different. Being a Hebrew, as Abraham proved, is a way of life. Not open to discussions, not open to debate. It's open only to following the way of Jehovah. So we're going to talk about being a Hebrew today. This generation is dead. He told them, now, know for certain, your descendants, your seed, that's the word that's used there, right. Your seed is going to be in a land that's not theirs. Land is actually plural, because we know from later on there's two places. And they're going to serve them. They're going to afflict them for 400 years. But afterward, they're going to come out with great possessions. And guess what? We're about to see the fulfillment of that promise to Abraham. Now, in chapter 1, verse 8 of Shmot, it says that a new sovereign arose over Mitzrayim who did not know Joseph. Now, he didn't say he didn't remember Joseph, Zakor. He didn't know Yadah. So this Pharaoh didn't know who Joseph was, hadn't been told, didn't know all that Joseph had done to protect Mitzrayim all those years earlier through the great famine, those 7 years of plenty. He didn't know all that stuff. Didn't care to know. All he needed to know was he was Pharaoh and he ran the nation. But he didn't know, so he didn't care. Now, let me get my thoughts going here. Because 1:8 is going to mark the beginning of the prophecy that Jehovah Elohim gave to Abraham. I've got to correct something that I've said over the years, because I've continually said I'm not a prophet. And I'm not a prophet like Yeshayahu or any of the other ones, Nahum, Amos. I'm not a prophet to the caliber that they are. What's a prophet? Someone who transmits the word of Elohim. I am not the only prophet in this room. Oh, it was correct. I should not be the only prophet in this room. Every one of us in this room, to some degree or another, should be a prophet, transmitting not what I think, not what I believe, not what I've conjured up in mind maybe in the future, but transmit simply and plainly the word of Elohim as it is written and given to us. So that's what Elohim was doing to Abraham. He was telling me this is what's going to happen. And when we get to this part in 1:8, we're beginning to see the fulfillment of that prophecy because Elohim said so. So from here on through the end of this chapter 1, we get a description of some of the suffering the Hebrews had to endure at the hands of the Mitzrayim. And I'm not going to get a lot of detail of that because, as you know, during the Passover Seder, we go through this whole story in full detail. So if you want the whole story in full detail, we got a Passover Seder coming up. Be there and you'll get the whole story and all the details and all this kind of stuff. But we see what's happening and how they were punished, how it was like, telling the midwives, don't let the boys live, kill them. And when that didn't work, he gave permission to the entire nation of Egypt, Mitzrayim, to kill any male Hebrew child. Throw them in the river. Look at the last verse of chapter 22. He commanded all of his people, throw every son who was born into the river and keep alive every daughter. Shmot chapter 1, verse 22. He gave everybody in his nation a license to kill babies. Wait a minute. He made it legal to kill babies? Only men here. What nation would make it legal to kill babies, men and boys and girls? Chapter 2. Now that's the story of Moshe's birth, how he was brought up when he killed the Mitzrayim taskmaster, how he had to flee to the land of Midian. There he married Ruel's daughter, Zipporah, and had their first son, Gershom, born to them. That's chapter 2. Again, more of that during the Seder. Chapter 3, what do we get into? Well, in chapter 3, he says he's in the very back of the wilderness with his father-in-law's sheep, and he comes to this place called what? Koravah. We call it Horeb, but the actual Hebrew pronunciation is Koravah. That's the mountain of Elohim. He's already there. The mountain of Elohim was already in the land of Midian. Moshe came to it. Okay? And actually, here it says, if you look at chapter 3, verse 1, it says the mountain of Elohim. If you read it in the Hebrew text, it says the mountain of the Elohim. Hahar ha-Elohim. The Elohim. The only one Elohim. Now, look at the verses 1 through 4. And who all is involved in Moshe's meeting at this bush that was burning was not being consumed? Look at verse 2. The messenger of Yahweh was there, right? Look at verse 4. Who else was there? Yahweh was there, right? He saw him turn and come toward the bush. Who spoke to him? Wow, what an encounter Moshe had that day. The messenger, Jehovah, Elohim, all there, watching. Kind of tells you how important this meeting was, right? Because this was the beginning of the change that they had been crying out for so long. Wait a minute, what was the key to this meeting? What was the key to Jehovah Elohim coming down to see what was going on? What was the key? His people were crying out to him saying, we have messed up. We're enslaved and in bondage in a world who cares nothing about you, and we're suffering because we are your people. John hit the nail on the head. Guess what we're at, the point at we are in life today? Whether you realize it or not, we are Jehovah's people. We are Hebrews. We are that treasured possession of his that's supposed to be above all the other nations of the earth, but we are enshrined and we are embattled in a world that has turned away from Yah and wants nothing to do with him. So if we really want our Father, Elohim Yehovah, to hear us, if we really want to see that messenger of Yodevave return, what have we got to do? When my people who are called by my name humble themselves as the first step, call out to me, I'll heal their land. So if we're going to be Hebrews, guess what we've got to do? Humble ourselves.
And don't forget, repent.
Repent. Well, if you don't humble yourself, you're not going to repent. Right? And what does it mean to humble yourself? I mean, we hear that word all the time, right? Oh, we got to humble ourselves. Let's be humble before the... What does being humble mean? It means lowering your head and being ashamed. I can't even look at him in the eye. I'm so... You know what humble means?
Submissive to his will.
I am a mighty man of Elohim. I walk in covenant with my Father. I fear no evil. But I humble myself saying, Father, it'll be your will, not mine. That doesn't mean become a weakling that the world kicks around. It means just the opposite. It means standing up, letting your light shine on this word unapologetically, being Torah observant and having the testimony of Messiah and saying, but I'm not telling the world you're going to do it my way. I'm going to do it my Father's way. Whatever my Father says in his word, whatever my Father tells me, I'm going to humble myself and go, well, I know better. Now, how many of you have been in life and said you knew better than what the Father did, what was best for you? How many of you just lied? We've all been there. Wanted something so bad that we knew that was from the Elohim. That was from our Father. It had to be the right thing. It sounded good, looked good, and it got it, and guess what? It's horrible. We didn't humble ourselves before our Father. So when somebody tells you to be humble, it simply means your will, Father. Messiah humbled himself, right? All the way to the point of death. But in the meantime, he cleaned out the temple. He addressed the Sadducees and the Pharisees and the scribes and the lawyers of their day, and he said, no, that's wrong. You stand on this, you do this. Be humble before the Father and repent, and he'll heal this land. It's what he did. So, then it goes on, and we get down in the bottom, because I got a long way to go. We're going to be here till whenever I get through. No. But I want to get into this chapter 3, verse 14. Okay? Because there's something there that I want us to look at. And Elohim said to Moshe, I am that which I am. Somebody ever asked you to describe the God you serve? The God of Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. What is he? He is what he is. Out of his own mouth, although some people say he doesn't have a mouth, but out of his own mouth, he spoke these words. He told Moshe, he said, I am that I am. What does that mean to you? If Elohim walked up to you, and you could survive it, and he says, Evan, I am that I am. What would that mean to you?
Omnipotent, everywhere I am.
I'm not what you make me out to be.
And I am whatever it takes to bring you to where I want you to be. I can do whatever I need to do for you when you're humble before me to bring you in and sit you at my son's side. There's nothing too big for me to do. There's nothing too hard for me to do. I can be whatever you need me to be to fulfill my will in your life. If I need you to be rich, you'll be rich. If I need you to be poor, you'll be poor. If I need to send you to Timbuktu, guess where you'll go? And when you get there, I'm going to take care of you. Oh, but there's fighting over there. Jehovah is a man of what? Battle. Remember after crossing the Sea of Reeds, Jehovah is a man of battle. So if he's going to send you into where there's fighting, you're following the greatest battler there's ever been. He's never been defeated. So he can be whatever you need him to be and take care of you wherever he sends you or whatever he asks you to do. See? Angie's a perfect example. She said, he told Angie, you got to marry this guy. And she went, but she did. Now, if you want to know what a blessing that is, you'll have to talk to her after I'm gone. Okay. But now, he said in Shmot 15:2, simply, I am. Yeah. I am. How do you define I am? You
Needs
can't.
no explanation.
You can't put him in a box. He just is. He is my I am. Now, that word Yah there. Now, you see how it's actually written when he says I am that I am. It is they. Eve. Shmot 15:2 is Yah, and about 50 other places throughout the Tanakh, he addresses himself simply as I am. I'm Yah.
And then Yeshua says that as well to the centurions.
Yah, oh sure. Yah is salvation. That's who he is. What is Yah? He's salvation. Salvation from what? Salvation from the Torah? No, that's eternal. Salvation from Hasatan? No, he's already defeated Hasatan. He saves us from the penalty of sin. It's our choice. I stumbled over choice this week. Is sin something we choose to do?
Mostly.
Or is it a decision we make? Because choosing is something like, flip a coin. But a decision is one that's based on what you know. It's based on information. So for us to sin when we have the Torah in front of us and we've read it and we've studied it and we've listened to what the Messiah taught, when we sin, it is a decision we make. And that's where you get in trouble. You have to know the ground rules of our covenants and make the right decisions. Okay? Now, chapter 15, he gives us a little bit more of an explanation so nobody can ever say, what God do you serve? I am. Oh, well, that's the one I serve. Now, he gets very specific in verse 15. He says, thus you're to say the children of Israel, Yehovah, Elohim of your fathers, the Elohim of Abraham, the Elohim of Yitzchak, the Elohim of Yaakov, has sent me to you. This is my name forever. And this is my remembrance to all generations. It's not that this is his remembrance to us. Every generation needs to know his name and remember it. Yes, Deb?
Okay, so this is kind of confusing to me because Shmot obviously names what we're talking about is the name of Yahweh being revealed.
Mm-hmm.
And this translation is different in the scriptures in 6, but in other translations in the past, in fact, I was surprised to read it like this today. It says, I am Yahweh who appeared to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob as Elohim Almighty, but I did not reveal my name, Yahweh, to them. And so, and you can see that, like if you look back in Genesis, remember when Jacob's like, what's your name? And the messenger's like, why do you ask about my name? But he doesn't actually say any name. That's all he says is like, why do you ask about my name? So I'm confused because it's seeming everything, all the evidence is pointing to the fact that this is the first time he's revealing the tetragrammaton, like the Yod He Vav, Yahweh. Even though we see Yahweh in the beginning with Adam and Eve, Yahweh Elohim, but I don't know that they knew it, or maybe they knew it and just Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob didn't know it. But obviously, people had to know it because that was to be Moshe's proof to the Israelites that he was actually talking to their Elohim, the Elohim of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So it just, anyways, you know what I mean?
Okay, yeah, let me see if I can help here a little bit.
Okay.
In Bereshit chapter 4, the last verse, chapter 25, verse 26. And to Seth, to him also a son was born, and he called his name Enosh. Then it was begun to call upon the name of Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh. This name is known. The problem with that verse you just quoted is the punctuation marks. Because actually what he's saying there is, and by my name Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh was I not known to them.
Yeah, that's what this one says.
That is a more accurate, exact translation. It's not like, but by my name Jehovah I was not known to them. No, he's saying, and was I not known to them? Abraham, when he approved it, El Shaddai appeared to him in chapter 17 and chapter 18. He addressed him as Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh. So how could somebody say, well, Abraham and them didn't know his name? Yeah, they did.
Yeah, I don't know. But then why is there such emphasis on, I mean, the whole chapter is named names, obviously talking about the name of Yahweh. Why would there be such emphasis on it here?
Well, the main thing is the names that are starting out with, not the name of Jehovah, but the name of the descendants that he used to build his nation. Yahweh's mentioned all the way through here. So I disagree with the way those translations are done. I disagree with the premise behind it. And a lot of it is because traditional Judaism thought, no, they never knew his name. But we're going to get into that because think about this. What did he say? All right, you're going back into Mitzrayim. Now, he said, now when I get there and they ask me who sent me, what name should I give them?
That was supposed to be his proof.
So that means that Aharon and the elders of Israel, guess what? Had to know that name. Or it would have done them no good. Or he could have made up a name. It's almost like a code, a secret code there. When I get there, okay, tell them that I am sent you.
I agree. I'm just wondering if Yahweh, the first time that translation or something, that's different maybe than I am. Maybe people knew, like Abraham and Isaac and Jacob was different just by I am, but now he's saying Yahweh. I don't know.
I believe that they knew it. They knew the name. They cherished that name. They taught it to their children. I think it's a translational problem there, the way they put the punctuation marks in. I also think it's got some rabbinic influence because they try to protect the name and say, see, even Abraham and them didn't know the name. It was here. I don't know.
Well, we'll talk about that.
And I guess everybody's got to make up their mind for themselves how to read that verse. But for me, it's like they knew it. That's because it was that code. You tell your brother, because he was kind of the leader of the people in Mitzrayim at that time. When the elders ask you who sent you, you give them my name because they know it, and that's your way in. I got these other 3 signs just to prove it. You didn't hear it from somewhere else, okay? But anyway, that's my take on it. Okay, if it helps, if it confuses you more, study, right? Okay. Now I want to look at 3:16 because there's another thing here that I want us to look at here. In Exodus Shmot 3:16, go and you shall gather the elders of Israel together and say to them, Yehovah, Elohim of your fathers, the Elohim of Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, appeared to me, saying, I have indeed visited you and seen what was done with you in Mitzrayim. He just told Moshe to tell the elders, he said, I visited you while you were enslaved in Mitzrayim, and I saw what was happening to you. So that tells us two things happened. One, Yah visited the Hebrews while they were enslaved in Mitzrayim and saw what was going on to them. But two, he not only saw what was being done to the Hebrews, he also saw what the Hebrews were doing in their way, and they assimilated, right? Now, join me if you will. Let's go to Yechezkel, or Ezekiel chapter 20, okay? If you've got a scriptured Bible, it's going to be somewhere around page 545, 546. 546. Okay. And so, when did he visit them? Before Moshe was sent in. Okay. And when he visited them, what did he do? Okay. He said to Ezekiel in chapter 20, verse 5, and you shall say to them, thus said the Master Yahweh, on the day that when I chose Israel and lifted my hand in an oath to the seed of the house of Yaakov, and made myself known to them in the land of Mitzrayim, I lifted my hand in an oath to them, saying, I am Yahweh, your Elohim. They knew the name, because he just said, I told them my name. Okay? And on that day I lifted my hand in an oath to them to bring them out of the land of Mitzrayim, in a land that I had searched out for them, flowing with milk and honey, the splendor of all lands. And I said to them, each one of you throw away your abominations which are before his eyes. Do not defile yourselves with the idols of Mitzrayim. I am Yahweh, your Elohim, but they rebelled against me and would not obey me. All of them did not throw away the abominations. Evidently some did, but not all of them, which were before the eyes, nor did they forsake the idol of Mitzrayim. So I resolved to pour out my wrath on them, to complete my displeasure. But I acted for my name's sake, and he delivered them. He redeemed them and brought them out. You realize what we just read? Yahweh our Elohim visited the Hebrews while they were still enslaved, and he told them who he was, told them what he was going to do, told them to repent and throw away their idols, but they rebelled. But he delivered them anyway. Somebody want to define grace and mercy for me? There's grace and mercy. He gave an oath to Abraham, an eternal oath, to deliver his people. And he did it. Not only did he deliver them, he redeemed them. He delivered them. But what else did he do? He brought this stiff-necked, rebellious, idol-worshiping people out of Mitzrayim after some huge plagues, crossed the Sea of Reeds, brought them to his mountain, Korivah, and entered into covenant with them. Despite all their past sins and everything else. He said, now, I know all the things you did. I know you disobeyed me. I know you didn't do as I told you, but I redeemed you anyway. And I brought you to my mountain. And now I'm telling you, if you will diligently obey my voice and guard my covenant with you, I'll enter the covenant with you. And you can be my treasured possession above all the other peoples of the earth. It's the same thing he does with every one of us. He takes us from where we are, snared in all kind of sin and idolatry, burdened down by the pressures and enslaved to this world, and he said, I'm going to bring you out. Now, you need to straighten your life up, but we don't. It's got to get so bad that we're going to call out to him first. Father, I blew it, help. And he's going to deliver us, even though we're saying, how many of you said, Father, if you just let me have this one thing, I promise I will never do X again. Anybody ever said that in their life, ever? And forgot it? Oh, my memory, Father. I said, but don't worry. Your memory's not perfect, but mine is. Let me remind you of what you said. But he still brought us out, and he still brought us to his mountain, to his presence, his home. He said, now, despite all you've done, look at what I've done for you. And if you'll guard this covenant and obey me, you'll be my treasured possession. You'll be my child. I'll adopt you. Man, it just, that's a message that needs to be every day. You need to be telling that message to somebody. Then in 3:21, he said, and I'll give this people favor in your eyes of the Mitzrayite, and it shall be that when you go, you shall not go empty-handed. There's that promise in Bereshit 15:14, the covenant of the parts he told Abraham, when you come out, you're going to come out with great possessions. And here he goes. He said, I'm about to fulfill this promise I gave to Abraham, but the nation whom I serve, I'm going to judge, and afterward let them come out with great possessions. See there, he's about to fulfill this. The Father does what he says he's going to do. Now, look at 3:22. But every woman shall ask her neighbor, and from the stranger in her house, objects of silver, objects of gold, and garments, and you shall put them on your sons and on your daughters, and they shall plunder the Mitzrites. Okay? That's how they were going to come out with great possessions, right? They were going to plunder the Mitzrites. But there's a couple of interesting points I want to bring out in this slide. One is the word neighbor. Okay? Shikan means to reside with others. If you look in Shmot 12:4, it's understood to be a friendly neighbor. Okay, because in 12:4, it says, let him and his neighbor next to the house take according to the number of their beings, talking about the Passover lamb. So when we read the word neighbor, okay, that's somebody that they're living next door to who has in their possessions silver and gold and fine garments. So, was he talking about their Hebrew neighbors or Egyptian neighbors? Remember where we talked about a few minutes ago, and it said that in Shmot chapter 1:7, it said, and the land was filled with them. And now he's talking about neighbors that have gold and silver and fine garments. It certainly suggests that by this time, the Hebrews were living not only just in the land of Goshen, but all over the land, because they had rich neighbors. Okay? But then you get to this other verse that's even, to me, more astounding. The stranger in her house. The ger. Ger is, according to Volume 116, one who is grafting into the Hebrew people. A person from the Gentile nations that are grafting into the Hebrews. But wait a minute. They're slaves in Egypt under harsh taskmasters, working daylight till dark, slaving away to build all this stuff for the Egyptians. And there were still Gentiles recognizing they were the children of the Most High Elohim, of the Creator, and saying, even though y'all are in bondage, we want to be a part of y'all. I'm not making it up. I'm just bringing out what it says. The ger, the Gentile who is grafting into the Hebrews, that's living in the houses of the Hebrew slaves. What did the Hebrews have that even in slavery, people said, I know there's something about these people, and no matter what it costs, I want to be with them. Something's happening, and I want to be with them.
Reverse assimilation.
Right. But that's where we need to be today. We need to be so... I like the term on fire for Yehovah Elohim, but there's another term I like better. We need to be so in love with our Creator and His Son that it consumes our lives. That we barely have time for anything else except them. Oh, we have to work, pay bills and all like that. I understand that. But we should be so consumed with our love for our Father and His Son that people look at us going, you know, y'all don't live in the best part of town. Y'all don't necessarily drive the nicest cars, but I want to be with you. There's something you have that we're missing that we don't understand, But even though you're not in the top of society, maybe, except for maybe John, you got, all that money you never spent and stuff. I want to be with you, even if it means coming out of the world I'm comfortable in and going through what you're going through, all the trials and tribulations that you're suffering. Wow, I mean, it like to blew me down when I finally read all of that. Now, I'm going to just a couple more verses, and we're going to leave the rest of this for the Passover. Because on the way to Mitzrayim, in 422, he told Moshe to tell Pharaoh, thus said Jehovah, Israel is my firstborn, my son, my firstborn. That's important. Now, firstborn is from Berea, or from Barak, and it means firstborn, but it also means birthright. So when you see firstborn, it means the one who gets the birthright. Okay? And that's about to put a load of responsibility on your shoulders. Okay? Now, back in Shmot 19:5, where we read, if you diligently obey my voice and shall guard my covenant, then you shall be my treasured possession above all peoples, for all the earth is mine. When you enter into this covenant at Mount Sinai, which is a voluntary covenant, he's brought you out of whatever you were in, and his desire is to bring you to his mountain, to his presence, and you to enter into this covenant with him. And guess what happens when you enter into this covenant by obeying his voice and guarding his covenant? You become part of Israel, his firstborn. Right? I don't want to go on further if anybody's got any questions about that. You're his treasured possession above all the other peoples of the earth. But keep in mind, what? All the earth is his. Just because we get to be the firstborn, just because we get a double portion, it doesn't leave the rest of the world out. As a matter of fact, what is the responsibility of the firstborn? Take care of the rest of the family. Provide for them. Teach them the Father's word. Teach them the way they're supposed to go. As firstborn, we're supposed to look at all the other peoples of the earth as our, hopefully, brothers and sisters one day, and teach them how to walk in this covenant. They won't be the firstborn, but they will certainly can be a child of Elohim, right? Through Messiah Yeshua, we become sons and daughters, firstborn and other children. But he told Pharaoh, he's my firstborn, and if you don't let my firstborn go, guess what I'm going to do? If you refuse, I'm going to kill your firstborn son. Pharaoh knew from the beginning the game he was playing. It's not really a game, but for lack of a better term. He was warned from the beginning. If you don't let my son go and serve me, and he didn't say anything about 3 days in the wilderness. He said, if you don't let my son go to serve me, if you refuse, I'm going to kill your firstborn. And he did. No bones about it. He was warned. And so the father delivered his firstborn son out of Mitzrayim. But as his firstborn, we didn't live up to what the father expected of us. Or they didn't. Join me, if you will, in the book of Amos. That's somewhere around 600. Hold on, I'll tell you. 11. And I'm going to go through this a little bit quick and not read the whole thing because I want you to see the point. I want to make the point, but I want you to go back and study it out. So keep this in mind. In Amos, we find a judgment being handed down. Okay? And look who is again. If you look at verses in chapter 1, verses 3 through 5, he's got a judgment for transgressions against Damascus, right? But one day he's going to send fire upon them, okay? Then in verses 6 through 8, Gaza. There's a judgment coming. I shall send. That's kind of a future thing. Going to send fire upon them. Then in verses 9 and 10, judgment against Zor. 11 and 12 is Edom. Then in verses 13 through 15, you got Ammon, the Ammonites. Okay? Then in chapter 2, verses 2, 1 through 3, you got the Moabites. Judgment's coming on them. Then in verses 4 through 5 of chapter 2, you've got the southern kingdom of Yehuda. He said, you've rejected the Torah of Yehovah. You did not guard his laws. I'm going to send fire. I shall send fire upon Yehuda. Then in verses 6 through 16, it's judgment against the northern kingdom, Israel. All for the same reason, idolatry and all this kind of stuff back and forth. So in the first parts of Amos, he's judging, Damascus, Gaza, Zor, Edom, Ammonites, Moabites, the northern tribes, the southern tribes. Man, he's got some judgment going on, right? But then look at chapter 3. In chapter 3, he addresses something different. O children of Israel, against the entire clan which I brought up from the land of Mitzrayim, saying, you alone have I known of all the clans of the earth. Therefore, you see what he says? Israel. Now, this is not the northern tribe of Israel. This is all the tribes of Israel, including those Gur that wanted to graft in and become native to Israel as well. All of the clans, all of you. You alone have I known of all the families of the earth. Why does he know Israel and not know the other families of the earth? Now, obviously, right? He knows they're out there. He knows who they are. He knows the hairs on their head. So what does he say? We know him. Remember what the Messiah said at that judgment when we, wilderness of the people, depart from me. I never knew you. He knew they were there. I never knew you. You never knew me. We never knew each other because you didn't understand the covenant that the Father required. But you, Israel, I have known you because you entered into this covenant with me. He's not dismissing the rest of the world. He just went through a whole process of how he's going to judge them for their sins. But he said, Israel, I knew you. Therefore, I'm going to punish you for all of your crookednesses. Could two walk together without having met? Because he knows us and we know the Torah, but we refuse to walk in it fully. He said, I'm going to punish you for all your crookednesses. Now let me kind of wind this up. Don't get excited, just this part, okay? You see what's going on here? First two chapters, he talks about all these nations. Their judgment is coming, okay? At the end of this age, their judgment is coming. But doggone, right now, you look at the world, it's like, boy, they living high on the hog. They getting away with everything. Look at all the money and look at all the stuff this world has got. And look at this, we're Israel. We get every time we turn around because we know better. We know Torah, the Father's punishing us, but then guess what? The nation's punishment come at the end of this age, but guess what's coming for us at the end of this age? We're getting our punishments now to correct us so that at the end of this age we get the blessings and the rewards he has in store for us. Now, which would you rather have? You want your crowns and fun now and then be punished at the end? Or would you rather be punished and chastised and kept in line so that when the Mashiach returns at the end of this age, you've got an eternity to walk in all the blessings, not just a few short years? We're Israel. We're his firstborn. Now, Amos chapter 4 goes through the punishment because. This is why Israel has been punished over and over and over. And it goes through some history here. But I want you to look in Mark verse 6, verse 8, verse 9, verse 10, and verse 11. And look at the last phrase of those verses, and it says, "But you did not turn back to me."
Which chapter?
That's chapter 4. 6, 8, 9, 10, and 11. I did all that. I withheld rain from you. I did this. I did that. But you did not turn back to me. I struck you with blight and mildew, creeping locusts, but you did not turn back to me. I sent a plague among you, just like was in Mitzrayim. I killed your young men with a sword and your captured horses. I made your stench in your camps, but you did not turn back. I overthrew some of you, just like Elohim overthrew Sodom and Gomorrah, but you did not turn back to you. Therefore, I am doing this to you, O Israel, and because I do this to you, prepare to meet Elohim, your Elohim, O Israel. Why? Israel's history, especially if you go back and look at Ezekiel chapter 20, Israel's history is a cycle. Coming back, falling away. Coming back, falling away. From the time we left Egypt all the way up in time till we're gathered unto the wilderness of the people to pass on the rod. We've got this cycle in history of falling away, coming back.
And isn't it interesting? It's like what John was saying earlier. The cycles of Israel falling away coincides with the cycles of people rising up against Israel. Okay, so if everybody had stayed faithful the way Abraham and Yitzchak and Yaakov would have, it would have never given rise, like John calls it anti-Semitism, but it would have never given rise to people thinking that they could rule over Israel in the first place.
Right, because our light would have continued to shine. We'd have continued to walk in blessings, and nobody.
Yeah, so those cycles.
And we would have had people assimilating into Israel instead of vice versa.
Assimilating into the world. Okay, now I'm going to ask you to turn. I'm going to read you something from Ezekiel that comes after. Okay?
After what?
I'm trying to decide if I should skip this part or not. Okay. After we're gathered to the wilderness people and caused to pass under the rod. And some are turned away and not allowed to go into the land of Israel. But I want you to hear what Jehovah Elohim says about those who pass under the rod and are allowed to enter into the land of Israel. As a sweet fragrance, I shall accept you when I bring you out from the peoples. I shall gather you out of the lands where you have been scattered, and I shall be set apart in you before the nations. And you shall know that I am Jehovah when I bring you into the land of Israel, into the land for which I lifted my hand and an oath to give to your fathers. We passed on the rod. We made it in the land of Israel. And there you shall remember your ways and all your deeds for which you were defiled, and you shall loathe yourselves in your own sight because of the evils you did. And you shall know that I am Jehovah when I have dealt with you for my name's sake, not according to your evil ways, nor according to your corrupt deeds, O house of Israel, declares the Master Jehovah. So when we finally, if we are privileged enough to pass under that rod and walk into Israel, and to be there in the presence of Mashiach, to reign with him, the first thing we're going to realize is how unworthy we were. Even though we strived as hard as we could to guard these commandments, have the testimony of Messiah. Don't think when you wash on the rod, it's just going to be like everything's washed away. He said, you're going to remember your filthy deeds. And that's going to make you appreciate what I've done for you more than ever. It's going to make us fall in love with him more and more and more. Paul Wilbur sings a song, oh, I wished I could have loved you more. We're going to learn to love him more. because we're going to finally see how our righteousness is like just filthy rags in his presence. It's good, but not compared to him and when we're in his presence. That's going to be an awesome thing. But why? Why all this strict call to obedience and what can be some rather severe punishment when we disobey? Why so strict in this world? And the answer is, we're his firstborn. He depends upon us.
Yeah, but not just that. All of the commandments are for our own good, for our health, for our prosperity. Everything that he told us to eat, not eat, the way he told us how to manage our money, how he told, he lays all of these things out with strict punishments because they're for our good.
For our good, but not just for our good.
Our, as in globally, ours and people's good.
It's his firstborn. They're critically important. Because there's something that I think is not taught enough in this world. Yehovah Elohim, the I am. This greater and nothing's impossible to him. He has placed his omnipotence, omnipresence, wisdom. He has placed everything he is into position to where he says, I need you. He chooses to need the firstborn. Excuse me.
Isn't that also so that we can be in his presence? Because if we
Yes.
are full of sin, it would just be an impossibility. Because he wants us
But-
to be near him.
Right. And that's our ultimate goal, the ultimate end goal at the end of the book of Revelation. But right now, he needs us as his firstborn, taking care of the rest of the wayward children. Now, keep in mind, just throw out a couple of firstborns. Esau and Reuben. What does the life of Esau and Reuben tell us as a firstborn?
That the blessing of the firstborn can pass over the physical firstborn.
You can lose it. You can lose it by not caring. You can lose it by sexual immorality. You can lose the standing of the firstborn, and it will pass to somebody else. Remember Esther? But who knows if you weren't born for such a time as this? You were called to be part of the firstborn, to take care of all the other peoples of the earth, to guide them, to teach them, to instruct them. And it's up to them to accept or not. Esau had a choice. Reuben had a choice. Everybody's had a choice that got passed over. But he needs us because he chooses to need us to be the firstborn to take care of all these other peoples. All the world is his. So, why all this strict obedience and harsh punishment that can come very swiftly sometimes? We're the firstborn. We receive a double portion of his inheritance. We are his treasured possession as firstborn. We look after all the other peoples, which we can't do if we're not walking as the firstborn and walking in covenant with him. We can't be the firstborn and take care of everybody else if we're out there like everybody else needing to be taken care of.
Or we're hiding from everybody.
Or we're hiding from everybody else. Now, real quick, I'm going to go through about 6 verses and then we'll wind this up. Isaiah 64, 1 through 4. Because this is what awaits the firstborn. Now, I'm not saying that all the rest of the children don't have blessings and everything else too. But I'm going to show you what awaits the firstborn, or what I believe the firstborn is going to inherit. Isaiah 64, 1 through 4. He said, that you tear open and come down the mountain, going to say, since the beginning of the ages, they have not heard nor perceived by ear, nor has the eye seen any Elohim beside you, who acts for those who wait for him. You shall meet him who rejoices and does righteousness and who remembers your ways. He's going to come down and meet us. And we're going to rejoice if we rejoice in his ways. Now, Paul kind of quoted this in 1 Corinthians. It's a little different in Corinthians. But it had been written, eye has not seen or ear has not heard, nor have entered into the heart of man what Elohim has prepared for those who love him. It's worded a little bit different, but the sentiment is the same. Paul simply saying, listen, Israel, you don't have a clue what the Father has prepared for you if you will just stay the course and run the race. We can't even begin to imagine what he has for us. So it's not that Paul got it wrong. He just paraphrased that scripture a little bit. Says the same thing. 1 John 3:2, beloved ones, now we are children of Elohim, and it has not yet been revealed what we shall be. But we know that when he is revealed, we shall be like him, for we shall see him as he is. Yes. I'm ready. I hope I'm ready. I'm ready. It could happen today and I'd be happy. Except for, if it happened today, Father, how many people have I missed reaching out to with this message? Okay? Now, 2 Timothy 2:11 and 12. Trustworthy is the word. Oh, wow. That's reassuring, isn't it? Trustworthy is the word. For if we die with him, we shall also live with him. If we endure, we shall also reign with him. But if we deny him, he's going to deny us. Depart from me, I never knew you. He didn't say destroy us. He said he'd deny us. I mean, is that what he's referring to? Father, we did this in your name. Messiah, we did this in your name. Cast out this. No, depart from me. I never knew you. That's denying you. I don't know who you are. But if we will obey him and endure. What did it take to endure? Hang on just a second. What did it take to endure? Revelation 14:12. Have the testimony of the Messiah and guard the commandments of Elohim. He said that's what you have to have. This is the endurance of the saints, of the select, of the set apart ones. Okay, if we endure with him, we're going to not be ruled over by him. We're going to reign with him. Okay, listen.
That was 1 Corinthians, what, a second ago, I wasn't quick enough.
1 Corinthians 2:9. Okay. 2 Kepha 2:4. Those, through these there have been given to us exceedingly great and precious promises, so that through these you might be partakers of the mighty like nature, having escaped the corruption of the world caused by lust. We got something waiting us. We're going to have that mighty like nature in us. New heart. Remember Jeremiah chapter 31? He's going to place in us a new heart. This heart of stone is going to be gone. This is what we're looking forward to. Revelation chapter 20, verse 6. Blessed and set apart is one having part in the first resurrection. The second death poses no authority of these, but they shall be priests of Elohim and of Messiah, and shall reign with him 1,000 years.
Amen.
Reign with him 1,000 years. Okay. That's what this is all about. Here we are in a world that, in my opinion, which may or may not be right, is closer to the return of the Messiah than we have ever been. That's a safe one, right?
Yeah. I'll say.
There's so much wisdom that comes out of this brain once every 63 years, right? No. I believe we're closer to the Messiah than we understand. I believe, given the shape of the world, given what's written in Scripture and everything else, I believe, though I could be wrong, prepare for the worst and hope for the best, right? I believe we're on the very verge of seeing the tribulations, the wrath being poured out. I believe we're on the verge of it. If not, does anybody want to venture the idea that the world's in pretty good shape right now and doing good, living for the Father's word and everything? The world's in horrible shape. Everything that's abomination to God seems to be being lifted up and worshipped in this world. Look at your history. What's happened in nations and the world when that kind of stuff goes on? When the abominations that the Elohim calls abomination are lifted up and worshipped and loved by the world was judged. And where are we today? We're right on the verge of that. So let's hope that what is about to happen is the Messiah's return in the end of this age, that we don't have to go through another 1,000 years of whatever's going on. We're the firstborn of Israel, of the Elohim. if you choose to be. If you choose to obey his voice and guard this covenant, just as the Messiah did and taught us to do. You're his firstborn. He needs you to be about the business of the firstborn, taking care of the rest of the people, being a light, being a testament. Don't let the darkness of this world dim your light. Being here on Hanukkah, when we shut out all of these big electric lights coming from this nuclear power plant and all this kind of stuff, and we shut out all it, and we light these little bitty candles, and it lights this room up with such a glow and a peace. The darkness cannot hide your light if you will stand on this covenant. That's the first message. The second message is, don't lose what the Messiah has prepared for you in the world to come. Stay the course. Fight the fight. Now, when Paul said fight the fight, he meant fight. He didn't mean, oh, you'd have to argue with people every now and then. How many times was he beaten and whipped and all this kind of stuff? He goes into the litany about all he had, oh, poor parable Paul, all the stuff he went through. That was real. That wasn't Paul just making this stuff up. Fight the fight. Yes, there are going to be family, friends, governor, whatever, are going to think you're crazy, old-fashioned, backwards, whatever. You believe that old book? No, don't you say we're under grace? You're going to catch it from every way, and it's going to get to the point that the Messiah said they're going to think they'll be doing God a favor if they turn you over or kill you. Stay the course. Do like Messiah did. Don't lose the promises that belong to the firstborn of Israel. Don't lose the promises that belong to those who will endure to the end. There's nothing in this world that's worth losing what the Messiah is bringing with him when he returns. The fight is here. The fight is here. You can fight it individually and be like the 7 sons of Sceva, or you can bond together with the rest of Israel, come together as a family, as brothers and sisters, and stand and be a brighter light than this world has ever seen. It doesn't take 5,000 people. It all started with one man, Messiah. And he picked 12 men, and one of them, don't lose it. Fight back. Take a stand for Jehovah Elohim and his word. Take a stand for his son. Take a stand for what they stand for and what they taught us to do. And don't compromise. Be a light. Okay? Shabbat shalom. Okay, thoughts, questions real quick? Okay, that was it. Okay, go ahead, Dennis.
You're talking about being the firstborn, and another verse in Revelations it says, be careful not to forget your first love.
Right.
So for us as the firstborn, Yahweh needs to be our first love as well.
Right. And his son. You can't love one and not love the other. So you're right, yes. The idea that I've already got enough shame about what I've done in the past as it is, but if I make it into that it's really going to hit home, and I'm going to appreciate him all that much more, and that's the whole thing. He's not doing that to shame me or put condemnation on me. He wants me to see how much he loves me. And that's what we have to look at and love him back. You're right. Okay, anything else?
Can you go back a little bit and talk more about what Devin had brought up about that specific scripture, I am that I am, and can you just expound on that a little bit more? Because why didn't he say just in that moment, I am the father of, Abraham, Yaakov? I mean, why did he say why?
Well, he did kind of, if you go back to Shmot chapter 4, I mean, he says, the Elohim of your fathers has sent me to you, and they say to me, what is his name? And I shall say to them, I am that which I am. Thus you shall say to the children of Israel, I am has sent me to you. And he said further to Moshe, thus you are to say to the children of Israel, Yehovah Elohim of your fathers, the Elohim of Abraham, is all the way down. So he does kind of express all of it. You know, but you get to that verse where that she was quoting in chapter 6 said, you know, but I didn't make myself known to them. It kind of, it blows everything out of the water that we've read up until then, all the way through Breshith and all the way up through here. You know, I mean.
It's not that I'm saying that they didn't, because I know it said, you know, when Abraham said he called on the name of Yahweh. But what I'm wondering is the differences between what he's saying, between I am and maybe and Yahweh, whatever it is, the pronunciation or something that he's saying now.
There's the key that I don't think we can crack yet.
Well, yeah, maybe not.
You know, you got the Yud and the Hey. Yah. In his name that he said, I am, you had an Aleph, a Hey, a Yud, and a Hey. Okay? But in the next verse down, it's Yud, Hey, Vav, Hey. I think if we can ever come to understand what that Vav and Hey on the end of Yah means, we'll get a better understanding of all of it. But Yud Hey Vav Hey is listed all the way through from the beginning. So, you know.
I am seems like something more. It seems like something that encompasses not just his name, not just something for us to call him by, but something that encompasses his power and might and characteristics as well. Because you can say a name, and I guess, you know, all those things I guess do go in a name. You know, what's in a name, as they say, but.
Okay, let me. Go ahead and let me figure out how to say what I got to say.
To me, there's a lot in him calling himself I am. For one thing, he just is. He always has been. He always will be the same, and he just has existed forever. So that sets him apart from any of the false gods, any of the gods of the nations. They have origin stories and whatever. They have whatever. But he's the I am. He's the only one that's like that.
And there is one understanding in some of the older writings, okay? And I'm trying to choose my words carefully because I don't want to confuse anybody or anything like that. But there is an understanding that Yud Hey Vav Hey, the Father, and Yud Hey Vav Hey, the Son, all exist within I am. But it's too much to try to, for our mind, we just have to accept there is an I am. There's a Father and a Son, I am, okay? You know, and so there's just not answers that we're going to be able to get with the human mind. I mean, what does that Vav Hey on the end mean? A nail in the hand? Yah with a nail in his hand? Or is it more than that? See? So, I mean, there's just more in the I am. Because, I mean, there's no way to explain it.
He has to be revealing something more right now to Moshe, even than before with the other fathers. Otherwise, they wouldn't have put such an emphasis on that whole thing, going over it over again in chapter 3 and in chapter 6, going over his name over and over. There's something more there even than what we've seen in Genesis, where everyone just kind of knows the tetragrammaton. You know what I mean?
Well, and the other thing is he's sending him into Mitzrayim, okay? And how many gods did they have? And so if you wanted rain, you had to go to this God.
Right.
And if you wanted you went to this God. If you wanted healing, you had to go find this God. Then you had to figure out which God was which. And the Father say, no, I am everything. You don't have to go to this God or this God or this. Just come to me. I am. I'm the one.
Right.
So when you get back where all these other gods are, you just tell them, forget these are gods of the Hebrews. Of the Mitzrayim. I am. I'm the one. And I'm thinking to totally make a fool out of all of their gods. I'm totally going to blow every god they have, even Baal Zephon that's guarding the way home. I'm going to kick him out of the way too. I am. Yeah.
I just have another question about the name. In this parsha, I think it's the only place that, there's a few places where there's an extra mark at the end after the hey, the last hey.
Yeah.
And there's a couple places where it's not. Is that a typo in this, or is that?
I think that's the. I think that's.
So it's like right there, it's there, and it's in the next, and it's there, but it's not there.
Yeah.
Oh, I see it.
If you I think that's got part to do with the Masorite vowel pointings and the cannellation marks. Because if you actually go and you pull up the Luxembourg Codex, the Tetragrammaton, the Yud Hey, the Vav Hey, is vowel pointed like 7 different ways. And I think it's got to do with the context of what he's saying. But I'm not, as far as I know, nobody's figured out why those different vowel pointings in different places, you know. So, John?
I got a part of the question. First of all, was the tribe of Levi ever in slavery? And secondly, if it was not in slavery, why not? Third, of all the tribes that left, that would eventually leave Egypt, why were they the smallest of all?
Can I answer all of them at one time?
You don't know?
Yeah.
I
No.
had a similar
No.
question about the priest tribes.
Yeah,
and
the
what their
Levites,
role was.
all of Israel was enslaved. All the Hebrew, including the Levites, they were all enslaved, okay?
Moshe and Aaron were both of Levite, and they were
Right.
enslaved in Egypt.
And Aharon was kind of like the leader because he's the one that was called out. So Jehovah spoke to Aharon and said, come out and meet your brother who's coming from the wilderness in. So he was in contact when speaking with Aharon. It wasn't like Aharon didn't know who he was. I mean, it wasn't exactly like, hey, I'm going to take the day off, go out in the wilderness and meet my brother. No, you're a slave. You try to leave here, So, but go ahead, Dan. Okay, yeah. Why they were the smallest, I don't know. Maybe because they were the Levites, they were singled out more. I don't know, son, but yeah. Anything else? Well, we'll wind that up then.